Hello, everyone. Um, well, I'm going to talk to you guys about who do you think you are with the fabulous Miss Kimberly Dixon. She's our guest today. And so it may take us a moment to get into the group the way I want to get into the group. So just hold on for just a moment. So now I'm going to, it's now being live streamed. So I'm now going to cut off the Facebook and now we're going to go live. All right. So I think that's what I did wrong last time was I was trying to see in Facebook as we were going in live. So we're going to stop doing that. So again, this is Kimberly Dixon. Let me introduce you and welcome her. Kimberly is a nationally known author, speaker, and life coach. She's the founder of Joyful Living with Kimberly Dixon, LLC. In addition, she has performed spoken word. She has been a natural hair model and a brand ambassador for Love is a Parable. I love it. That's a great initiative. I love that. She is passionate about helping chronic pain sufferers live their best life. Kimberly utilizes her YouTube channel and self-help books to arm the public with information about complementary and alternative pain management, as well as presenting a community awareness program by partnering with healthcare experts in the Raleigh Durham area. After suffering with chronic pain for 35 years, 11 orthopedic surgeries, and growing up neglected, Kimberly experienced an emotional and spiritual crisis. Through decades of pain, with God's grace, she found her way back. In 2018, she released her fourth book, her memoir, Can These Bones Live Again? And it was a great book. It's still a great book. You guys need to get that. Hopefully, we're going to post that information in the chat. If not, I will post it on our group and also on my personal page. Okay, so you'll be able to get it. And so it's published by Noah's Ark, published in Los Angeles, California. Her books also include I Have Arthritis, Now What? Ways to Manage Arthritis Pain, which is a self-help book. Her second book is I Need a Knee Replacement, Now What? How to Prepare for Knee Replacement Surgery, and that's another self-help book. And a third book, I Had a Knee Replacement, Now What? What to Expect After Knee Replacement. All these books are very much a self-help, so you can kind of really follow her journey and see how you can apply those principles to herself. And the last book also includes a companion journal. So it's a 6-week companion journal. So that would be very, very helpful for someone. I find that that's very helpful because books something they read and something they interact with joyfully. And I've tuned into several of them. So I love what you're doing there. I also posted a little clip of the little clip you showed me. I posted it in the group as well. Kimberly holds a master's degree in education with a focus on psychology. She's a certified professional coach, a certified Christian coach, and a neuro-linguistic programming practitioner. That's very interesting. I'm very interested in that. Maybe we can touch on that today. In addition, she is certified in holistic pain management and meditation. She resides in Nightdale with her son and 2 cats. 2 cats, not 1, but 2. So that's got to be interesting too. So Kimberly, tell me, how do you decide that you were the person? I mean, there's a lot of people who've had, these same issues you've had, maybe not exact same issues, but there's people who had arthritis, there's people who had knee replacement. Why do you decide that you were the one to write about it?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for the lovely invitation to be here today. I am so excited to share with you all. But it actually, it went into my situation with my chronic pain. So I found myself in my late 30s in a situation where I was going back and forth to the doctor with this chronic knee pain, but I was too young to get a total knee replacement at that point. I was in my 30s, had seen several physicians, and no one was willing to give someone at my age a knee replacement because at the time, the technology didn't support having your knees replaced at such a young age. And I found myself in an emotional and spiritual crisis. And I realized one day that I was going to the doctor for help, but it wasn't the physical help I wanted him to help me with. It was that mental and the spiritual aspect of it. So at that time, I started putting everything that I had learned, the way I felt emotionally on a blog, which I no longer have. But years later, I realized that I did those things for myself, but there were other people who needed this information too, because we're going to a physician to heal us. But what really needs to be healed is our broken heart. Because here
that's very interesting that you said that, because that's some of my issues as well. Is when I go to the doctor, you expect me, I always come back feeling like I didn't really get the service that I required, and I know we're not the only ones,
absolutely.
I don't know what they teach them in school, other than their, they might know their, the practice of medicine, but to me that should include some of that helping, that psychological and, helping, human to human,
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's one of the things that I realized, that I was going to the doctor, but he was only addressing what he had been trained in, which was the physical aspect. But medical professionals, and I think in general, we need to realize that humans operate as a whole being. We are physical, spiritual, and mental. And if you don't address all three when you're going through a physical crisis, 2/3 of the body has been left out of that equation. If you're just feeding and treating, just think about it. If someone gets a cancer diagnosis and you only treat the physical, but you don't treat the emotional pain they're going through, or the spiritual pain that you feel forgotten or forsaken, then you're leaving out most of the body.
Well, they're leaving out the science. The science tells us that the mind and body works together. The science tells us that it's not any kind of hoochie woochie stuff. Science tells us that our body can actually manifest stuff in the physical, that it can improve us, improve our health, if we have a good mental attitude, if we have a good support system, if we already prepared. So I don't understand why they don't get on board with it. All doctors don't get on board with it.
So just to tell you a quick little brief story, one of my best friends was diagnosed with stage 4B cervical cancer and was given a terminal diagnosis. And because of it, she did the chemotherapy, radiation, surgery, but she was also doing life coaching with me, where I was speaking life into her, having her visualize her 85th birthday. And her doctor said, we don't like to use this term, but you're a walking miracle. Because just this past a few weeks ago, they changed her status to survivorship. She's no longer considered to be in remission because it's been 5 years now.
Wow,
and he said, what did you do? But she changed everything. She did the physical things, but she addressed the mental and the spiritual as well. And she said that she still listens to the meditation CDs that I sent her on healing and just looking into the future. It makes a huge difference.
So I know now, who you are. I know that now. But getting back to when you first started, did you have question yourself? You say, well, who do I think I am doing this? Who am I? Even before you even got all the education that you got, maybe, before, and certainly change your trajectory, because maybe everyone in your other profession, in your past profession, may have not seen things the way you see. So how do you say, well, who do I think I am to walk in this path?
I struggled with that so much as a young woman, because there's been a calling on my life my entire life. But I knew, you read my book, I knew where I came from. I knew the things that had happened to me. I knew the things that I had done. So I was like, there is no way that God can use someone like me. So I ran from it. But I realized that everything that I went through, all the chronic pain, that was never meant for me. It was never about me. It was all part of my purpose to help other people. And I realized that if I don't use this experience, that somebody else's life depends on it. So I had to accept who I am with all of my gifts and talents. And I say this lovingly because I love it, but I was like, and accept that I am a complete weirdo. And I don't mean that as an insult. I love that I'm a weirdo and that I'm different and that I don't do things like other people. I don't act like other people. I enjoy being me in a way that I never did as a young woman because I have fully accepted who I am and my unique gifts.
Oh, guess. Welcome to Unart Village. I'm serious. Welcome, welcome, welcome. That's why I tell people, you know, I'm weird. I'm odd, and I've always been odd. But most creative people are. We see the world a little differently, and and even though the world tried to put fear in us for being who we are, but it's such a strong pull. You know, we cannot resist it. You know,
Cannot
and
resist it.
a lot of people, when you do resist it, you're miserable all the days of your life. You know, whatever it is you
Sure.
feel called to, you need to walk it. You might tip your toe in it or whatever, you know, and kind of, you know, gradually go over there. But you need to get with other people who value your weirdness, and y'all can lock arms
Absolutely.
and help build each other up and go down your weird little path together. Because you know, it's everybody is not the same. We're not supposed to be the
We were
same.
never
And
absolutely. We were never designed to be the same. You are a unique mold. God, when you were created, the mold was broken. There isn't supposed to be another person like you. So our
so,
individual paths are going to look different.
so how did you get support from where do you get your support from when you decide to go this path of writing about your story? Because that can be difficult. So a lot of times your relatives and friends don't want you to write, I want you to write that stuff down. They don't, you know, don't you just forget about that. Just put it aside. So
Well, some of my biggest supporters, even though they knew part of my story and they were part of the story, was my family. My dad and my siblings, they were 100%, yes, go, do it. They didn't pump the brakes. They were just like, go. But also I did face some opposition from other members of my family, distant relatives who not even in the book, but they were the ones that were the most upset about it. But I knew, and I don't know, I just know what my faith is. I don't know what anyone else's is, but I knew that God wanted me to write this book and it was time for it. And that I couldn't allow my own fear to stop it from going forth, because there were many times along the path where I felt hesitant, where I wanted to stop. I tried to stop, but I knew that this book had to be written because it wasn't just about setting myself free. It was about setting other people free through my story.
I like the way you said that, because a lot of times people do think they're even though we're weirdos or whatever, but our stories really aren't unique and not completely unique in that there's things that humans have in common. You know, we all have fear, we all have pain, we all have a need to be accepted for who we are. We have all those things in common. We all have challenges, might be different challenges. So it's like when you, like you said, when you step forth and you acknowledge your difficulties, that sets someone else's free. It's, oh, someone else has gone through that. They might not gone through the exact same thing, but they can see the connection. We feel the connection.
Once my book was released and I started doing book signings and things of that nature, I wish I could tell you the number of DMs, IMs, text messages, phone calls I got from not just people in the local area, but people across the country emailing me saying, oh my goodness, I felt like I was reading my story. And even though different components of it were different, especially as women of color, and when it comes to, unfortunately, a lot of us have that shared history of either some kind of abuse or some kind of sexual assault. So they were like, I was able to connect to your story. I laughed, I cried, I couldn't go to bed because I'm turning pages, but it was because of that connection that they felt that, oh my goodness, somebody else has been experiencing the same things that I've experienced. And guess what? They didn't just survive it, they're thriving.
Thriving. You can thrive even after trauma. You can.
You can thrive.
I'm going to say, but one of the things that struck me, there's a lot of different things that struck me about your book, but one of the things that you talked about, even this your thing of being, you know, just being, feeling like you were disabled, you know, that whole thing, you know, I had that feeling for only a slight moment in my life. Like for a year, I had foot surgery that really the doctor messed up my feet, really. And I was on walkers and wore the boot on both feet, you know, for this happened for maybe a year and a half of my life. And I thought, well, it's gonna never end. I thought I might be crippled. I did not know, and that's the way I felt. That's not the politically correct term, but that's how I felt, was crippled.
Yes.
But there are people who also reclaiming that word as one of power. But that's how I felt. I felt like I was not going to be the same. I went into the doctor to get help, and I came out worse than I went in.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
Yeah.
and it's like, no, and you feel like someone has done this to me. First of all, I feel like my body let me down, and therefore God let me down, because he created me, right? And then this person that that I'm paying all this money let me down as well, because he botched the surgery, and that was a whole other 9 yards. And so I really felt for, and the people in thank God I had family that came out. I was in California at the time, that was out there that was during that time, because the person who was my significant other at the time gave really no support whatsoever, none. And so I would have really been in a fix. So sometimes, when you're helping other people, I thought helping other people to come out, sometimes you're helping yourself. You never know how God works things out. That's when he works everything out for your good. I believe that with all my heart. I really do.
I do too.
I really, really do. So tell me,
really
what do you see yourself? Okay, I want you to tell me, how do you see, you can ask me anything you want to ask me too, but I want to know, how do you see yourself moving forward from where you are now? And I want you to talk about your new project as well.
Well, that book came out in 2018, and like everyone else, the last 2 years, I've experienced the pandemic. My family has suffered tremendous loss, but during this whole time, I knew that God was preparing me for my next book. And you follow me on social media, so I do a lot of things with gardening, and that has transpired. That's my next project, is I'm working on a new book, because it's been several years now, and I knew that there was there's always one. Someone told me years ago, and that's actually how I became a spoken word artist for 1 minute, hot minute. I only did a few pieces, but I was asked to vend my book at a poetry event, and they were having an open mic, and the organizer said, "Kim, are you going to perform a piece that night?" And I said, "Absolutely not. I write books." But the young lady at the venue that we were hosting the event at said, "Kim, writers write. You can write spoken word. If you've written 5 books, you can write spoken word." So I always knew that there was another book in me. I just didn't know what the topic was, because after all, that's my memoir. What do you write after your memoir? But God has given me the go ahead. It's time for everything that he's been showing me through my gardening, and even how that came about, because I grew up with my grandparents gardening, but I didn't have a garden as a young adult. But he's used that garden to teach me and show me things that I otherwise would not have seen. But not only has he shown it to me, the number of people that have picked up gardening because of my Facebook Lives and my YouTube channel, I was astonished. So I am working, we're in the organizing phase of my next book. I foresee it being out sometime in the fall of this year, because I have one of those publishers that when you press the gas pedal to go, he goes 100 miles an hour. So it will be out this year. But in addition to that, I just feel like as long as we have breath in our lungs, as long as we're still breathing, we're living, there's always a next. You never arrive. You're never at a destination. And especially as creatives, regardless of what your medium is, whether it's poetry, writing books, creating art, masterpieces, whatever the avenue is, you never reach your destination. No matter what level of success you're on, you are never there. As long as we are still breathing, creatives create. Like she told me, writers write. If I'm 100 years old, I'll be like, can I come back on this show? My next book is coming out.
And I encourage anybody, no matter what your creative medium is, if it's cooking, if it's sewing, if it's whatever it is, find a way to share it. Find a way, because someone needs what you have to say. There's lessons learned in creativity, and you can share those lessons. That's going to touch someone.
One of the things I believe is my life, even in your life and everybody's life, it's not for me. It's for to be shared. It's to help someone else along their journey. So if I keep my gifts and my talents to myself, then I've actually harmed someone else because I didn't release what was given to me. We're here just to help someone else along the way.
Yeah. I mean, that's a biblical principle about being a steward. You know,
Being a
you
good
don't
steward.
want to bury it in a hole. You're supposed to put it out there, right? And then bring forth
Absolutely.
something. Yeah. And so we just need to, I mean, a lot of things we say, but a lot of us who claim, and follow the Bible, we don't always keep referring back to those principles that they're supposed to have to our everyday lives, and it should. And other people in other religions do the same thing. I think very few people actually follow the faith they say they in to the degree that they should. I put it that way.
Yeah.
Because life kind of interrupts you, gets you kind of like focus on all kinds of different things. But I want to talk to you about the idea about your memoir, because I want to make sure I express that to everyone. You're too young to have a last. That's not your last memoir. That was just for then. There are going to be some more memoirs to come.
That was just the carrot for that season.
Exactly. Exactly.
It felt like a long season, but that was just the first act.
That was just the first act. You have many, many years ahead of you, and there's many more stories that we need to hear from you. We really need to hear from you. So I'm looking forward to the next memoir, maybe the next 2 or 3. You never know. I am looking forward to the garden. But let's talk about gardening, because I'm really excited about that, because I've been preparing gardening. Last year we said we're going to do it, but this year we're actually in the process of doing it, because gardening is in my DNA too. My father was a farmer. I mean, that's what my family background is, farming. I never lived on the farm, but my brothers and sisters did, because I was much younger than they are. And so I've never lived on the farm, but my mother always had a garden. She always had a garden in the backyard, and a flower garden in the front yard, and vegetables in the backyard. And we always had trees and stuff. She would always get a tree and plant a tree. So we're all about that. And my father had such a green thumb. He would grow in sandy soil. He knew how to transpose that soil into something that was fertile. And he had the best garden ever. And it doesn't matter where he was. And that was really, anybody who really knew my father could tell you that. And I said, that's got to be in my DNA somewhere. Did it skip me or what? So I'm going to put that to the test this year. So I'm going to be following you. I'm going to be following you, some of your tips and stuff, and maybe asking you some questions. So how would you say someone should get started with gardening? How do you get started?
Well, how I got started. Well, I grew up helping my grandparents in the garden as a child, but my parents never had a garden, and I didn't have one as a young adult. But living in an apartment a few years ago, I decided that I love a garden, grown tomatoes. So I decided I wanted a tomato plant, and I was sitting on my patio having my coffee one morning, and the Holy Spirit told me, show this to the people. Now, at this time, I'm already a life coach. I'm already author of several books. But still in that moment, I said, show them what? But I was obedient. I turned my little Facebook Live on and started talking. But what I realized was I started taking life coaching tips and, taking the growing of plants and combining it with life coaching tips to teach people about gardening and about life. But over the course, that was 4 years ago that I started doing In the Garden with Joyful Living, just by happenstance. But that's another thing. I don't believe in happenstance. I believe everything is by design. But over the years, that has grown into me having almost a full-fledged garden. Now, I don't do in-ground gardening. I do it because I started with an apartment. I do it in planters. But I show people that you are still able to grow everything that somebody grows on an acre of land right on your deck, on your patio, to allow you to have fresh form of food. Because one of the things that I've realized is some of our younger generation and our kids, they don't know where food comes from.
They don't.
I remember a couple of years ago, I saw a social media post about when the pandemic first started. They were talking about, going in the grocery store and the shelves being empty, the produce section being empty. And a young woman replied, we can just go to Trader Joe's. And people made so much fun of her. and they picked at her and called her all kinds of names. But you know what that made me feel? It made me feel sad that this young woman, probably in her 20s, didn't know where. I apologize. I was getting.
Oh, no problem.
But I think that as a person of color, you and I, and many other people that are going to watch this, it's in all of our DNA. We came from the motherland. Maybe we didn't come there specifically from ourselves, but gardening and growing our food is such a part of the African American culture. I think it's part of all of us, whether you've grown anything or not. Because a lot of people say, I don't have a green thumb, I can't grow anything. But over time, we learn.
You learn,
and
that's right.
You have such a connection to the earth. And then once you start doing it, and it's almost magical. Just the connection of being in the garden and watching things grow and
creating something.
The multiplication principles that you see, because you plant one seed and it produces many fruit that has hundreds or possibly thousands of seeds in it. That's it's a miracle watching it, the whole process. So as you can see, I get a little excited about gardening.
And that's good. And I love it too, because growing it in pots, or some people do what? They do square foot gardening where they do it in planters and larger planters. That makes it accessible to more people. So no matter where you are, live in an apartment or wherever, as long as you can get some sun, you can grow. You can grow something. So I'm excited. I'm gonna start with some herbs because I love fresh herbs and things like that, and go on to some other things as well. But yeah, I'm excited about it because I haven't been outside. Between the pandemic and being stuck at a computer, doing, because I teach some there, you're always trying new things and doing videos. I really did not get outside as I should. And I think also it wasn't, quite frankly, just because of the computer. It's almost I didn't feel safe.
Yeah.
Even though I knew there was nothing really outside my home, it felt that was really unsafe. But something about it, the environment just did not feel safe to me.
Right.
And that's something I think a lot of us still are dealing with.
Well, we were going through so many different things, and we still are going through so many different things. And it wasn't just the pandemic, as you said, it was what we were seeing happening in our country and seeing happening with young Black men and young Black women across the news. It left all of us with a feeling of insecurity.
Absolutely.
Am I safe?
Am I safe? And see, that's another thing, a point, is that once you get into your creativity, with me, is writing poetry or writing, I like write prose, so I write essays as well. And sometimes I get them published in my little secret hideaway. But the whole thing of it is that that's my release. That was my safe place, and still, but I know that I was a person who grew up outside. I was a person who they said, go outside and, your job is to play as a child. I took my job very seriously. Okay. I was out there. I was doing everything you could do outside. I was in it. And I felt so great in my own body, my own skin, and on the planet, like from the sun to my body to the ground. I just felt like I was such a part. And I want to get that back again. I think as adults, we think we grow up and we grow out of things. And what we're doing is we're growing away from ourselves, the things that really make us feel whole.
We grow up and we start doing the things that we think adults are supposed to do, and we forget everything that we enjoyed as a child, whether that be coloring, playing outside, riding our bike. My brother used to take us on hikes as a young kid, and once I got my knees replaced and all of that, I started hiking again. And I wish I could tell you the freedom that I could feel just wandering through the woods. Sometimes I would be with a group, and then, I would hike by myself. But then the Holy Spirit told me to stop hiking by myself. And when we went into, it was actually in 2019, I was dressed to go hiking. I stepped out of my door. I reached for my car handle, and something said no. And that was the last time that I got dressed to go hiking alone, because I was like, I hear you. Something's not right.
That's right.
But
You have to pay attention. You have to pay attention to
you
that
gotta
voice.
pay attention and you gotta listen. When you hear those promptings, whatever it may be, you've got to pay attention to it because it's life and death.
It's life and death. And
But
no longer
I think that we get older and we start adulting and striving for the things that we think we're supposed to have, and we let go of everything that we love. But I'll never forget the time that I went in my dad's house and there was a coloring book, and I was like, "Oh, Scooter left his coloring book here," and I laughed. And my dad, this is a man in his early 70s at the time. He went, "Nah, baby." He's like, "That's my coloring book," and I was like,
hey,
"Dad."
right. All right. I love it.
And he said, "Yes, I love it." I was like, "I like to color too." And I started coloring again.
Isn't that wonderful? Isn't it
I,
wonderful?
I, that was something I had never known about my dad.
I mean, you'd be surprised. My father was a very creative person too. He was always drawing sketches on how to make things. He's just a very unique person. I think he's one of those weirdos too. I think that's where I got it from. But
Yeah, that was my dad too.
you're talking about how about adulting, and I talk a lot about growing up on purpose. A lot of things we think are adults, and it has nothing to do with being an adult. I mean, a lot of things we think, used to be the things we used to accuse children of being, oh, you grown, that's being grown. But now we got grown people doing these grown things, which we used to put children down for doing. It's like we're stop emulating being a grown up. And being a grown up does not mean not having fun. But some of those things that they want to have fun is not building them up. They're not teaching them how. To me, a lot of people not teaching them what they really need to do to be self-sufficient, like growing their own food, knowing how to fix things, not always having to pay people to do things that you can do for yourself. I'm all for paying people now, because some things you can't do. You don't. Everybody don't have a technological skill or the mechanical skill to do certain things. I'll pay somebody a heartbeat, but some things you sit there and you suffer when you could just do something for yourself. You feel helpless and hopeless, and I think that kind of affects how children and young people act sometimes in a negative way.
I absolutely agree with that. We grow up and we think of certain roles that you're supposed to play as a child or as an adult. But I think that being an adult is just taking accountability and responsibility for the things that you can control, but still keeping those things in your life that create pure joy. And learning how to balance so that you can have a nice lifestyle, but you haven't given up and sacrificed everything you love just to have those things.
Just have those things. I love the fact that in some culture, I used to tell someone, that's why I feel Jamaica coming on. I really miss going. I used to go to Jamaica a lot, and I like the culture because people dance. Whether they're 8 or 80, dancing is a part of their culture, and not necessarily just music. Just the musicality is a part of their culture. I really admire that, and we have music too, but it almost seems like we have kind of like we have to pay to go work out because we stopped dancing. Those of us who can't, it's like then you get to the point you got to go to the doctor because you haven't been moving enough. When it's like things that we could do for ourselves is very accessible, we don't do it. Like even you talk about outside activities. Now when I'm talking to myself too. I'm not talking about other people. I'm talking about myself. It's like and I start like playing. I love Michael Jackson music and the Jackson music. So I start playing and just dancing around the room because I love it. So why come I haven't been doing that? What's wrong with that?
Right.
In the privacy of my own home, why come I'm not moving? And it's talk about gardening. I need to get outside. And to get outside anyway, when I do something useful, go outside and hike, and one of the things I did that was not me, which I always want opportunity to do. And I did. I'm so glad I did. And that was to go White River rafting, which is like, that's nothing I would have chosen to do. I mean, it's like, I do not swim. Okay. I can keep my head up, but I'm not a swimmer. You know what I'm saying? So it's nothing, jumping in a river is nothing I would look like.
It's amazing that you say that because I always wanted to go whitewater rafting. Always.
You should. but you need to find, the opportunity came up where I was going with someone who I knew I trusted. They was going with a person who had done this for years, and they had did it with them. So I knew, I felt safe. And I went with a group of people that I trusted. And so I said, it's either now or never. And so I went, it was the best decision of my life. It was wonderful. I was down the Colorado River. And it was like, I felt like I was in a planetarium because there was no lights. You could see all the stars, and like it was like this close to you because you could see every last one of them. We camped out it was a whole week. We camped out every night. Our guide cooked our food and everything. And it was just, and we went down the river, we'll get up, we would hike sometimes. It was just I was in heaven, really, quite frankly. And if anybody could have that experience of really being outside in a safe environment, I really would encourage them to do that. As you've seen, you might have read a lot of especially people of color now are getting into camping now more than ever. Have you heard about that trend?
Actually, my family, we camp, which my brother has been camping. He's camped his whole life, but we now go camping as a family because my dad was a fisherman and a hunter, because they used to eat what they were hunting, not for sport. But my brothers never stopped fishing. And once he had a family, he started taking them camping. Well, once I had my knees replaced, my brother said, I'm taking you camping. And I've been camping with him ever since then. And so much so that during the spring and at least once during the summer, we camp as a family where all of my siblings go, my nieces and nephews, and we have 2 or 3 camp sites together and just have a wholly good time.
You know what? I'm gonna wait for my invitation. I won't.
I'll send you one because most of the time we are right at Carroll Lake, just a couple of hours from here.
Okay. Well, that would be wonderful because I just miss that. I really do. Just being outside. I don't really have to explain. Some people take things for granted. You walk outside, but it's something about being outside for an extended period of time, being close to the ground and just hearing things other than cars and TVs, going on. It's just something about it.
You said something really important there, that we take things for granted. Well, it was in my 30s when I was at the height of my chronic pain. Well, the height of it was beginning. I remember a day sitting on the couch and crying because I wanted to go outside. So once I got my knees replaced, there was no way I could stay indoors anymore. And I fully appreciated what it meant to be able to walk across the room and be pain free. Now, I was truly grateful that I could walk, but that whole experience taught me how badly I had taken that for granted, that I could you could just get up and walk across the room. Because once it became so painful that the thought of standing up was too much, that whole experience taught me to treasure this journey in an immense way, to really just breathe in the beauty of the moment. Because to be pain-free, to be able to see, to be able to smell and to hear, which when you're in nature, you're bombarded by all of those things. All of your senses are completely alive and awakened. So to go from crying on the couch because I want to go outside to being able to be and experience it, I'll never be an indoor person again.
So that's all. I'm going to try to keep you all day, though I could. So I want you to tell me about your coaching business. If someone approached you, who is your client? Describe who your client would be and what kind of processes would you go with them through?
Well, whenever I meet with anybody, I do a consultation with them to begin with to see if we're a good fit, because not every every client is going to be a perfect fit for you. But my ideal person is that person who is someone who knows, they feel that the inkling that they're missing something, but they may not necessarily know what it is. Now, my business is joyful living. That inkling most of the time that they're missing in their life is the joy. Mm-hmm. They've taken on these roles as whatever it may be, as a career person, a mother, whatever the role is that they have put the hat on and they've worn it well for
Mhm.
5, 10 decades. Now they're at a place where they just feel like, I don't know who I am. But that's because the joy component is missing from your life. I describe it as you are like a hamster on a wheel. You get up every morning, you go all day long, you come home, you fall into bed at night, and you do the same thing over and over, and you look up and 20 years has gone by. And you haven't done anything that you enjoy. You haven't been living. So I help people really tap into their joy and to what it is that they want and need to do for themselves. You don't give up your responsibilities as a parent, but you just tap into that part of you that you may have forgotten was there, or you may not have known that it was ever there.
That's true. That's true. Because certain things can just erase parts of your life. It's almost like it didn't exist. Like you skip. Like sometimes people skip just spans of time because of such trauma. And that's one of the things I'm studying about, trauma in early childhood and how it can change you and the things that you can do about it, because it does affect your health. Health is more than just your, whether or not you have aches and pains, even though that's that can really mess with your emotional, self, but it's also about your emotional self. Like you said, that's part of your health. And I think a lot of times we as Black women specifically, we're told to put our stuff on the back burner because we have to take care of our families. A lot of us are single parents, and you have to stay strong for your family. You have to stay strong for yourself. You have to stay strong to do the job that you need to do. You can't fall apart because
Right.
a lot of things around you are falling apart. And so sometimes we begin to believe that myth ourselves, that we're so strong that we're invulnerable, which we're not. We know how to put on that act.
It used to, I don't, this is just a moment of truth here. It used to infuriate me when people would say, I'm a superwoman. And, there was a trend at one time on social media about you are so superwoman. And I was like, no, we are not. It's like we are human and we are capable of doing super things, but don't put on that cape and wear it as a superwoman, because one day you will find yourself wanting and needing to take it off, but because you believed it, you fed into this insanity. Now you can't take the cape off, the one that you used to wave and be like, I'm a superwoman. You really want to take it off, but you can't now because now other people believe that tag. And everybody looks to you.
And everybody looks to it. And you feel like, sometimes that's the thing about saying, who do you think you are? Like you there, you go like, oh, well, inside you're not that, but you think, do I belong here? And it's like, yeah, you belong there. You belong there with all your faults and all your fears. You belong there. Our vulnerability and our able to communicate that, in a way is courage. It's bravery, and it's only that we can really reach other people when we can really acknowledge those vulnerabilities in ourselves. That would make us be empathetic towards other people, because
Absolutely.
We think we're all superwoman, and we think, well, how come you're not a superwoman? You know what I'm saying? So
and that
we need to
superwoman mentality says, I don't need anybody else, and that's not true.
That's
and
not true.
We all need other people, but that's one of the reasons why we have so many undiagnosed mental health issues.
Oh, we could talk about that for days.
That's a whole nother
ball. I would come with a panel for that, because that is really one of my that's one of my pet peeves right there, is the lack of care that we have for ourselves and for the system, the lack of care we have in the schools, when people, when people think they're a behavior problem, when they're crying out for help, we have people in jail when they need help.
Yeah, that just made me think that this isn't just that superwoman, our great nana that took on that role, and it becomes a generational thing. Yes. So now we've got a whole family of men and women that now have mental health issues because of the roles that we've been playing. It just trickles down. It just continues to feed. It's almost like the cycle of poverty, but now it's mental health issues.
Now it's mental health, and eventually, if we don't get that straight, it's going to hinder us in our next growth. You know,
Yeah.
I think that we are all primed. I think the world is really primed to take another leap forward, but we won't unless we really kind of recognize that and understand that we need help. And it's not the help that makes us weak. It doesn't make us weak. It doesn't make us less than, but we need to recognize it so we can get well. You know, we
Yeah.
can do better. Think of all the great things we have done. You know, can imagine if we were well and had that same opportunity. Can you imagine what we could accomplish?
Wow, that's just mind-boggling, because you already know we stand on the shoulders of giants. What could we have
Yes,
done if we were well?
and we were well. Oh my goodness.
Wow.
Woo!
Uh,
But
that's
is
the hair
it
just
something you want to
literally
leave us
stood up
with?
on my arms.
I'm telling you, it's like, oh. So I'm gonna let you leave it. I'm gonna let you say a final word you want to leave us with, and I'm gonna make sure that they have your information. I can pull up your poster that you gave us. Let me see if I can do that.
Okay. Well, my books are available on Amazon.com. You can purchase anything from the series, for the pain management series or my memoir. They're all available on Amazon.com. But the one thought that I want to leave people with is that we are all creatives. And I used to jokingly say that I love projects and crafts and stuff, but the image I had in my mind didn't really translate. It wasn't that it wasn't translating, that wasn't my medium. So I want everyone to recognize that you are a beautiful creative, that you were created to live in joy and to find that passion of yours and don't let it go.
I love that. I'm gonna leave it that just like that because that's what this whole thing is about. Who do you think you are? You're exactly who you want to be. You do not have to ask anybody's permission to be who you are. That's my
You
motto.
don't need permission.
So again, here's 5 ways to begin your joyful living. There's 5 books written by Miss Kimberly Dixon, and you'll find the links in Unartful Joy Community Circle. And I also will post them on my personal page and also on Celestine Davis, my LLC page, my business page also. And so I'm so glad, again, find out more at joyfullivingwithkimberlydixon.com. And you can have all access to these books, or you can look for her on Amazon. So thank you so much, Miss Dixon, Kimberly.
Thank you for having me.
And I hope you come back again soon. And I'm going to be contacting you about that gardening now for sure. And I'm looking for my invitation for camping. All right, then, thank you so much. Let me make
Thank you for having me. Bye-bye.
All right, now. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.